Hello and welcome to the 12th episode of Jedi Eternal. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Bolin, alongside the Animal Crossing enthusiast, Braxton Taylor.
Yes, Animal Crossing. I don't let you know that my passport ID is aggressive grandma. So
and mine's foul grandpa. So we were on the same.
We didn't even plan that
there.
one. We were just talking about that. Works out perfectly.
Oh my!
Well, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's been another crazy week, but
very eventful week for both of us here. But I'm sure it is for everybody. I think so.
Right. So we've been trying to ease our minds and pass the time with a little Animal Crossing on the side. Yeah. I hope you guys have been too. But
and for those of you who know, I hate the bunny and I hate the eggs, and I'm excited for this to be over with. So
I'm with you on that. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump straight into the news today. We actually have a little bit of news for you.
Finally.
And it's not anything super big, but it's kind of more just a confirmation of what we already know. And that is, we know that basically Disney has had to postpone a lot of movies. They've pushed a lot of dates back. Some movies have been pushed back to 2021 that were going to be released this year. Mm-hmm. But despite all of this, what we have learned in their newly updated release schedule is that the Star Wars movie, which still has no title or anything, is still planned for December 16th, 2022.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So despite everything, it still seems to be on schedule to be released then. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that if that's the case, then I think that's going to be really good. I mean, and obviously this is news, so this is true right now. But I'm just saying, with all the delays and everything that we've gotten thus far, I think it's very probable that we're probably going to see some more, although I hate to say that, because with just everything that's going on in the world as of right now, right. I think that it's somewhat probable that we're going to be getting maybe a few more delays, but I'm hoping that it sticks with the 2022 schedule, because for me that's going to be great. I mean, because we have some stuff coming before that, but a 2-year hiatus for them to really get their act together and really work on a good story and release it, and just build up. Because I remember when episode 7 came out, the hype was so real. I mean, I remember when we went and watched it, it was just it was electric. We went to the IMAX and just people were lined out the door. We came in costume.
We had Jedi robes on and lightsabers.
We did. That was we've never done that before. So just to show you that's how hyped we were.
It was a huge deal. It was
a big deal. So my point is that I'm not necessarily thinking that it's probably gonna have that much hype, but at the same time, I'm excited to give a hiatus. People get their expectations built up a little bit. Yeah. Let them take their time to make a good movie, and then when it finally releases 2 years from now, we're gonna have just a lot of excitement, a good movie, come into it, and it's gonna be good. Because I'd rather wait a little bit and get a good movie and be excited for it than have something pushed out next year or even this year and it be mediocre and not excited for it.
Right, and depending on how events go, of course, like you said, this could end up not being a possible release date. Mm-hmm. Of course, we hope that it is. Right. I really want this to be when it comes out, because if it's pushed back to December 2023, it's gonna be a really big bummer.
Oh yeah.
But the reason I feel like they wouldn't do that is because that's when their Avatar movie's supposed to, or Avatar 3, right?
Yeah.
Because Avatar 2 is supposed to come out next December, I think. Yeah. And so they're going to want that. They're not going to want to have Star Wars and Avatar in the same year. Right. So either we get it in 2022 or they might have to push it to 2024.
Now, that's unacceptable.
And that would be very bad.
Unacceptable.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. Of course, if we hear more, we'll let you guys know on that. But if you want to go ahead and lead us into the next thing there.
It's kind of on the same thread there, but when Disney released their official release schedule, it was confirmed once more that the movie was releasing in 2022, but it did confirm again that with their current schedule and everything, that the Cassian Andor series will be releasing in 2021. And then now, with all of the craziness that's been going around the Kenobi series and changing writers and all this insanity, the Kenobi series has been pushed, but confirmed for the year 2022.
So that's interesting. And we do have to keep in mind with this that this was created for the event in France that did not end up happening. And so, of course, the release dates they had scheduled there were set up before, of course, current events.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, these could end up changing, but this is just what we know from Disney Plus that they had released. And I think that we could really, I hope we really get it that soon.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
still far away, but
Yeah, it's still far, but
I was hoping
yeah.
for late 2021
Mm-hmm.
because right now this is what our schedule looks like, guys. It looks like we're going to get Cassian Andor next year. Or sorry, my apologies. The Mandalorian at the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Cassian Andor next year, and then Kenobi and a movie in 2022.
So 2022, if it works out that way, will be a very kind of crazy year in a good way.
Right. Like, it'll be a big year for Star Wars
Yeah.
if that ends up being the case. I don't think Cassian Andor will be the only thing we see next year.
You know, and I was gonna say that too. I don't think so. I don't know what it would be, but I do think they're probably gonna shoot something in there.
I think
as
we'll
well.
probably see another animated
Yep.
show,
Yep.
most likely. I know there have been rumors about getting that at the end of this year, but I could see it being something we get at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah.
And then late 2021 we get Cassian Andor,
Mm-hmm.
and then 2022 will be packed probably. So
Yeah, and that was kind of my theory as well. I know that there had been rumors for a Rebel sequel show or whatever, and it was supposed to come out like this December.
yeah,
But I highly doubt that that's going to happen, and I would not be surprised. Like you kind of already mentioned, that was my theory as well. I would not be surprised if we see that in 2021, and like maybe early to mid 2021. And then later, like, late 2021 was when we see
and
Cassian
you
Andor.
also have to consider that The Mandalorian is probably going to have a third season.
Well, yeah.
And so will that be in the same slot in 2021 as it was in 2019 and as it is planned for in 2020?
That's a good question.
Because if so, then that would mean we will get Mandalorian and Cassian Andor potentially if they continue to want to release The Mandalorian yearly
Mm-hmm.
for as long as they plan to do it for. I assume they're going to milk it for a while. It's done well.
Yeah.
Then potentially 2022, we could have Kenobi, The Mandalorian, and a new Star Wars movie, and who knows what else.
Cassian,
but
depending on if they're...
well, yeah, maybe even... See, that's the thing. If all of these shows are the beginning of seasons of shows, I
Right,
realize some of
yeah.
them are planning to be potentially just like a one-off season. Like, I know there have been talks about... Or I think that's what Kenobi's going to be. It's going to be a one-time, like a one-season show. Which
Yeah.
I have, like, pros and cons about that.
Well, right.
But I think... So I don't know if Cassian Andor is going to be that or not. They've not really said...
All I'm going to say is if we get more than one season of Cassian and we don't get more than one season of Kenobi, I'm going to be very
Honestly,
angry.
I think it's likely. I think it's more likely we'll get more seasons of Cassian Andor than we will
Yeah.
Kenobi, because with Cassian Andor, the way the story it will, I assume, be told is that there's a lot they can do with it. There's a lot of ways they can
leeway to
go with different places, introduce new
Yeah.
characters, and blah blah blah.
That's true.
Where Kenobi, it's so much more like sacred, like what you do with it.
That is true. I'll give them that.
And
yeah.
there's not as much room to just do whatever and for however long, because we know he needs to be on Tatooine and blah blah blah
for a certain period of time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
there's not as much they can work with there. So I think that's why we'll see one season of Kenobi, but then like potentially multiple seasons of Cassian Andor if it is, if it does well. Which, by the way, give us a title for Cassian Andor. Come on.
Yeah, I mean,
like just tell us what it's gonna be, and maybe they don't know yet, but I'd like to.
I like some kind of like little not sneak.
I'm
peek,
kind
I
of
guess,
tired of
but
calling
just
it Cassian Andor.
Yeah,
Like I like the Kenobi show. I want it to be called Kenobi personally.
Yeah.
I just want it to be Kenobi. I don't think
agree.
it will be. Just because we all call it that, so they want to call it something different. But that's
Yeah.
I want it to just be Kenobi. But the Cassian Andor series needs a name really bad.
yeah, I agree. I agree. We need to have some kind of unique title.
Probably have
for it,
something to
but-
do with Rebels.
Yeah, more than likely. I don't know. I'm excited for new Star Wars stuff, but I'm not super. I mean, like I'm not like foaming at the mouth for the Cassian series. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not either, but
hey, it's Star Wars.
But it's Star Wars.
We'll get what we take what we get.
and especially come time for that to release, we'll be really wanting something because we're not going to be getting a whole lot.
I mean, because here's the thing: we're still post, or like few months fresh out of, episode 9 release.
Yeah.
Mandalorian season 1. We fresh out of a few more months after this, but before this, I'm saying, the game, good grief.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes, Jedi Fallen Order. Good grief.
Yeah, we're about to hit a dry spell.
Yeah, for a while.
As soon as Clone Wars is done, there's going to be a little bit of a dry spell. I know we're getting Mandalorian season 2 in the fall.
Right.
But there'll be a little bit of a dry spell there, and then after that, it could potentially be a very long
dry spell.
Yeah. Again, if we get Celebration this year, which I hope we do, I really hope we do. If we get Celebration, there's a lot of room for them to like announce a new show for the beginning of 2021, which I think is the plan. I really do. I think it's another animated show, and we'll see it early 2021, and that will kind of fill in that gap that would have been there before they lead into the Cassian Andor show in the fall of 2021. So, anyways,
let's move on.
We talked a lot about that, but we'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on any of that stuff. So feel free to comment on our episode on Facebook or whatever, or Twitter if anyone looks on there. I don't think you do.
I don't
but
think so.
It's
a barren wasteland.
And go ahead and comment what you guys think about that. We'd love to hear it from you guys.
Sure.
So let's go ahead. We're going to move into our rumors section now. And we've got some more news or more rumors about Ahsoka and her show and all of that. So let's go into this here. This is coming from The Direct and by Pete. And he says here that Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka Tano contract is a Disney Plus multi-show deal.
Interesting.
So basically they're saying she's going to be introduced in The Mandalorian as Ahsoka, and then down the road they're going to have a live action series, but they're saying now she could be set to appear in multiple Star Wars live action series. Here's the thing. Potentially, with where the settings of the Kenobi series and the settings of the Cassian Andor series, she could technically appear in both of those.
Yeah, that's a very, very valid point for sure. I mean, I think it'd absolutely be interesting to see her in any of those contexts. I mean, just seeing her in live action is going to be interesting enough. Even if it's just for an episode, but in Mandalorian. But the problem for me is that if we're going to be doing this long term, I think we're going to have to really iron out any of the kinks. You know what I'm saying? Like really, playing a live action of something that's only been animated is difficult in anything, let alone something like Star Wars, which is it's a different species entirely. You know what I'm saying? And then also getting that right with making her actually feel like Ahsoka, still have like similar look, similar feel, have a similar voice. That's gonna be very difficult. Like I said, even for doing just one episode. We talked about this our last episode, but one thing is that we got Darth Maul and Solo right at the very end, and it looked really good. It looked great, and the voice matching was perfect, and with
Ray Park.
My mind is like blank today. Sorry, guys. But yeah, well, Ray Park played him. Sam Witwer. Yeah, that's what I'm trying. Sam Witwer voiced him, and I promise you, I know all these names. I'm just blanking. I don't even know my own name right now. But
Braxton Taylor.
Oh gosh, thank you. Right.
You're welcome.
Where am I? No, but anyway, my point being is it worked. I think we mentioned this because it was like one line, and it would be really easy to perfect that.
And who knows how much time they spent to perfect it too. We don't know. It could have been a while that they really tried to nail it.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, that's the thing if we bring in Ahsoka and we don't have Ashley come in and voice it. They're going to be able to use her a lot more, I think.
Right.
but it's not going to be the same.
It's not.
And again, we don't know. We just don't know what their plan is.
And if it's not the same, I don't think people are going to like it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, there'll be some fans I'll throw fits about it for sure.
Well, I mean, even for me personally, like, I love Ahsoka, but I'm not, like, I know there's people who like her a lot more than I do. But even for me, as someone who's just like I like her, she's a good character, I would be mad, right? Like, I would be like, man, this is not Ahsoka. If this is not Ahsoka, I don't want, and that goes for me for really any character. If you're taking a live action character and bringing them into animation or vice versa, they need to nail it, right? Like, don't transverse that gap and not make it correct. That's just the way I look at it with any character, Ahsoka regardless, So anyway, I just know that someone like me who's kind of indifferent, I mean, I'm leaning more towards like, oh, I like her, I would be mad. So I'm just saying, like, if they don't nail this, it's going to be difficult for them to do it more often in the future. So anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know that I like the idea of her being in every single live action series that's ahead.
Right. Exactly.
I think that might be a little much. But then I think about it, I do want to see her after Return of the Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
So I immediately am for the Mandalorian appearance because I want to see where she's at, what she's doing at that point.
Yeah.
And then I think about the Cassian Andor series. I don't really care that if she's in it or not, but I see where they could bring her in because he was at Fulcrum, right? And so, and she is as well for the Rebels.
Yeah.
They both have that title at some point.
Yeah.
So I could see that being a way that kind of links them together. And then, of course, for Kenobi, I would actually love for her to be in Kenobi.
I think it'd be really interesting.
For maybe just even a small portion, because again, you have that relationship of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ahsoka, and seeing just how they both are dealing with Anakin and kind of coming together, and it could be really emotional, really cool moment.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, and that's what I was going to insinuate too. Is interestingly enough, we get to see in Clone Wars that it's Anakin and Ahsoka, and Obi is there, but he's just like this kind of like godfather.
Yeah, I like that you called him Obi.
We're not going to talk about that. It just came out of the heart.
Obi.
Anyway, Obi. Anyway, I'm too lazy to say his whole name right now. So anyway, but anyway, the where's I going with that? Oh, right. But we see him as like this kind of like overarching, just like mentor figure. Like, he's not her master, he's not there all the time, but they're close. They have a relationship.
Right.
But what would be interesting is to take that master part out with Anakin, and because Anakin's the bridge between both of those characters.
Right.
And you kind of already said it, but like just to see that bridge between them ripped out and in such a horrible way.
Yeah.
I would love to see that interaction between them after all this has happened and be like,
because they're both going to be still dealing with the aftermath of that, and then they're going to be able to relate to each other because they both had such a strong relationship with Anakin, and so it just, I personally would love to see her appear in it for that reason.
Yeah,
and I want to see her in the Mandalorian, so maybe I am for her being in all of them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I want Mandalorian, quite a bit. I obviously want Kenobi. Like I said, I think I'm kind of agreeing with you, Cassian. I mean, I think
it doesn't really matter, but it makes sense, kind of, that she might appear. So
if she's not in it, I won't bellyache. But if she's in it, it would make sense to be cool. So anyway, let's go on with the this kind of within the same thread here. But we have some rumors that if Ahsoka, Rosario Dawson, she comes and plays Ahsoka live action, and she ends up getting her own show. That Darth Vader has been rumored to be inside that show. So now that opens a whole new can of worms, right? I think for me, if they don't get Hayden Christensen, I don't want Darth Vader unless they have him like in a suit and they don't show his face. Now, if they just do that, then that's fine. Whoever they get, but I'm like, if they're showing his face, which I think they should,
absolutely should.
Yeah. But and again, this is just rumor, obviously, but if that does happen, we have to have Hayden Christensen, and he does have to have his Matt. Well, it just depends on when the show is, because I remember in Rebels, she's surprised to see that Vader is Anakin.
Right.
Remember, because it breaks part of his helmet off. And
yeah, so it'd either have to be after that.
So it'd have to be after that, or they don't see his face. So it's one of the two. So, I mean, I think it would be really interesting to see them interact in a live action setting.
Yeah.
So I think it would be cool to see it post this, but I don't know how that would work out, frankly.
Yeah, so this was from We Got This Covered, and they said their source for this was the same ones who told them that, and it's big spoilers for Rise of Skywalker, that Rey would be revealed as the Emperor's granddaughter and Hux as a mole in the First Order. They both got those sources from this same person, and those ended up being true.
Yeah.
And so they're saying Darth Vader will appear in the new show. But here's the thing. Right, as of right now, it seems that the evil Sith Lord will return via flashback to the original trilogy era, where Ahsoka fights him in another encounter.
Interesting.
So what this is implying is that the Ahsoka show takes place after the events of the original trilogy.
Okay.
So it's still kind of like during the Mandalorian era. But,
which would make sense for really her then to be in both of those, Cassian and Mandalorian.
So it's saying that she's going to probably, it most likely kind of starts in the Mandalorian, and then like a side plot and that leads into her show would be my guess.
Yeah.
But then we get some flashbacks to an encounter that Ahsoka has with Vader during the original trilogy.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I would like to see that. But with that being said, though, that would mean then we're not going to see his face. So,
well, why could we not see his face?
Well, because,
we could see his face because that'd be after. That would be after.
I think my timeline's a little.
That would be after the fight in Rebels.
Yeah,
because Rebels takes place right before A New Hope.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess that they're within the 4, 5, 6 timeline.
So like the Cassian Andor series, just for everybody, the Cassian Andor series most likely will take place before or during Rebels, because they're kind of in that same era. Rogue One is immediately before A New Hope. Rebels, by the end of Rebels, kind of leads right into A New Hope as well. So this Rogue One show, or a Cassian Andor show, will take place before that even. So maybe a couple of years before A New Hope. So, but then, so this Ahsoka show seems to be going to take place after Return of the Jedi, around the same time that The Mandalorian would be taking place, which is 6 years, I believe, after Return of the Jedi. And then, of course, which is quite a few years before the events of The Force Awakens. So it's kind of in between those trilogies, for those that don't.
So what's going to be interesting, though, is transversing all of those different years, if she is in all those shows, to like see the aging difference.
Right, but it wouldn't be that much, because you have to remember so like from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back, we have 1 year, or wait, 3 years. 3 years.
Yeah.
And then between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, we have 1 year. So that's 4 years. Plus 6 years after that. So that's 10 years. So she'd be 10 years older between The Mandalorian and, let's say, she's in the Cassian Andor series. Or Rebels. Let's say Rebels, because that would be a 10-year difference there. From what she looked like in Rebels to The Mandalorian, she'll be 10 years older.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I guess it wouldn't be that drastic.
Yeah, so they could pull it off pretty easily, I would think, without making it seem too,
Well, anyway, I think it would be cool. I mean, again, this is all rumor and conjecture, but if we did get a Ahsoka series and we did see Darth Vader and so on and so forth, I think it would be really cool. So let's go ahead and move on to our final rumor for this episode. Are you taking this one off?
So Luke Hall joins Cassian Andor. He is set to serve as production designer on the upcoming Disney Plus Cassian Andor series. He recently served as production designer on Chernobyl, which was a very highly acclaimed series.
Yeah.
And it actually won an Emmy for outstanding production design. So
he's pretty well qualified then.
Yeah, I'd say he's well qualified. He's also serving as production designer on the pilot for the untitled Game of Thrones spinoff. So he's got a hand in a lot of big things right now, things that have done well, things that are probably going to do well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a win for the Cassian Andor series for sure. Now, the reason that this is in rumors is because it is an exclusive to discussingfilm.net. They are reporting this, but again, as we always say here, we do not consider something news until we hear it from the source.
Right.
So if Disney isn't telling us, we will not consider it news.
Right. I mean, that's pretty
just,
much it.
Yeah, that's just how we decided to do things around here. So
yeah.
Anyways, that's all we have today for our news and rumors. But we are going into our releases now, and well, guys, there's just not really anything. Again, right now, comics are put on hold. I think our next book release is in May, hopefully, and so. It's kind of a dead period right now, but we do have, of course, the next episode of Clone Wars coming out a week from today. It will be episode 9, starting the Siege of Mandalore arc, which I am very excited for.
Oh, yeah.
I have
absolutely.
very high hopes for it. And so that is the only thing we have for releases, but of course, make sure on Friday to catch that episode. And now we will go to our Q&A.
Our Q&A for the day. All right, guys. So, as you guys know, this is our Q&A segment where every week... Oh, man. Sorry, guys. Anyway, we go to a Q&A segment every week where we have a Facebook post asking you all to ask us questions, topics, suggestions, and more. So as you guys already know, we always try to do the 3 questions, topics, suggestions a week. And if you didn't get your question answered, then know that it will be next week, right? You'll be in the queue, and you'll be the first one to get answered next week. With that being said, this week's kind of a little bit different. I actually did not post a Q&A forum yesterday because last week we had like 12 questions.
Which we were very thankful for.
Very, very, very thankful for. I thought that was awesome. But the reason I didn't post one this week, not to say that we're not thankful, it's just that we just want to make sure we're keeping up with everybody's questions and we're not making anybody feel like they're falling behind or anything.
So we'll make another post probably Thursday, right?
Yeah. Because we'll answer 4 this week and we'll answer 4 next week. And I think that should catch us up because we did 4 last week. Yeah, so that should catch us up. But then, so next... Thursday we will have one. So anyway, with that being said, we'll get right on into the Q&A today. And so this week's first question comes from Andrew's little sister.
My little baby sister.
Grace Gill.
Gracie Gill.
Wow, that's a cute little cousin of mine. Oh yeah, I guess me and Andrew are cousins. I didn't know if anybody knew that anyway.
I think maybe we've talked about it before.
We did.
Third cousins. I think I've called you my third cousin on here before.
Okay, well,
but
TMI, I guess. Anyway.
But my little baby sister Grace.
Oh, that's so cute. Anyway, she asks, what are your overall favorite moments in the movies, books, comics, and games? And really, Grace, I don't appreciate that question because that's just way too broad. I'm just kidding. No, that's honestly like a really hard question, right? Because like favorite moments of all, like, I mean, everything, like movies, books, comics, games, like every piece of media, that's pretty hard. That's pretty hard.
Yeah, that's a big...
I have one. I have one, but do you want to go ahead? Or, I mean, I can go.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, I mean, the problem is that I looked at this question and I had about an hour to think about it. And I had so many things flooding into my mind as to what my favorite moments are and stuff. But honestly, I kept coming back to one because it's something really small, like not necessarily, it is generic, but it's not. I think like a lot of people felt the same way. But for me, this is like one of the first times I ever felt like, oh man, this Star Wars thing, man, this is cool. But for me, what really encapsulated it all was when I first watched Star Wars for the first time. I watched the original trilogy, obviously. I started off with episode 4. And right off the bat, we get this, the space scene where we're seeing like these spaceships for the first time. And I mean, I obviously wasn't live when it first came out, so it wasn't like so jarring, so shocking. I've seen stuff like this before, but it was, well, let me fast forward. So we see these spaceships, right? Blah, 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 blah. And we get on the Tatooine and we see Luke and everything. My probably one of my favorite moments that just really reeled me into Star Wars and made me feel like this is awesome was when we got to see Luke on Tatooine, and that moment where we see kind of that silhouette shot where Luke is looking at the dual sunset.
Yeah.
And for me, that moment right there was when I knew that, like, okay, I love Star Wars. Like, because I think for me, it showed, how do I say this? Like, humanity, like the simplicity. Like, it was just this young kid struggling with whatever, but yet here he is on this planet that's so different from our own, you know, and it's simple, or let me phrase that. It's familiar, but it's different at the same time. And that's kind of been the whole thing for me with Star Wars. It's like, we have these familiar things that I can like attach to my own life, but then it's so wildly bizarre and different with like these crazy planets and species and force and lightsabers. And so anyway, it's just that first moment when I watched the movie for the first time, I remember thinking like him looking off into that dual sunset, dude. That would, like, for me, it was so awesome. I don't know. That was one of my favorite moments. Like, so there's even greater, cooler things that happens in all the books and comics and games and everything. But for me, that was the first time I'd ever been introduced, and that just like something that's always stuck with me for sure. So anyway, what about you?
Well, so, man, there's a lot of stuff.
It's hard. It's a hard question.
Yeah, there's just so many different things I could talk about. I'm going to mention a couple things really quick. One of the things that I loved about Star Wars, and this is kind of maybe a strange way to put it, but was, I was introduced to Star Wars through my grandma and my dad kind of together, because my grandma had all the VHS tapes of Star Wars, 1 through 6, and she had them in her, and like she had this like little cabinet of movies, and I would see them there listed, it was 1, 2, and 3 wasn't released yet whenever I started like really watching Star Wars movies. So it was 1, 2, and then there was 4, 5, 6. And I would take those. My dad was the one that first like, hey, let's watch these, and we watched them at my grandma. I think we watched 4, of course, first. And but I would, anytime I was there, I would just take those out and look at them and look at the, like, they had like little art pictures on the VHS each box, and like, and that for me was one of the moments I realized I was like falling in love with Star Wars, was just like wanting to just like take the box and like look at it, and then I would like pick which one I wanted to watch, you know, and rewind it so I could watch it again.
That's awesome.
And so that it's because of my grandma that I fell in love with Star Wars. She had tons of books and stuff, so like that relationship there with my grandma and her showing, and my dad and showing me Star Wars is kind of one of the moments. I realize that's kind of like not necessarily a moment in Star Wars, but that's one of the things I think about first and foremost. Yeah. And what created that love for Star Wars in me, it was because of that. But then going into it, one of the movie moments that really that I've always loved, and another moment that like solidified my love for Star Wars for the rest of my life, was in Revenge of the Sith, the battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yes, 100%. That's one of the things I was thinking too.
No matter what anyone thinks about the prequels, like that moment is to me is flawless. Yeah, I actually think it's perfectly done. I think it was done exactly the way it needed to be. Mm-hmm. And George Lucas, you can say whatever you want about him, but he knew what he was doing there. And their relationship that we had seen, and you know, me being a young, impressionable kid, watching these two characters I grew to love, all of a sudden, like, you know, having to attempt
fight to the death.
Fight to the death was a very emotional moment.
It was.
And even to this day when I watch it, I'm like, man, I just get so emotional.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say for episode 3, that's episode 3 as a whole was like one thing I was talking about, and Order 66 and the final battle, like those are like heart wrenching moments that truly, like I thought like, oh my gosh, this series, I mean this saga, should I say, is insane. Yeah, and so that's one of the moments. And then I'm going to throw in some legends for you guys, and I've talked about this before, but I'll just mention it very quickly. But another moment that I, as a kid, I played and I realized, wow, I love Star Wars, was Knights of the Old Republic. Playing Knights of the Old Republic and getting the reveal that you, the player, was Revan, the Sith Lord. Yes. And getting that reveal like halfway through the game, all of a sudden like,
wait, no, actually, you're the Sith Lord and you just lost your memory, was a
man.
huge moment.
Yeah.
And like blew my mind and made me sit back and think, I love the Star Wars universe. I love everything about it. So those are some moments for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that again, that reveal, that's another one that kind of crossed my mind too, because it was just so like jarring and just like what? I mean, just jaw dropping. I mean, so yeah, those are some
and like
great moments,
back when that game was out, at least for me, I was too young. I was young, so like I wasn't on the internet and things. So like, you know, these days like you can barely avoid any spoilers.
Exactly.
Like spoilers are everywhere.
Yeah.
But back then, you know, you didn't. At least me. Again, I'm not.
Which the
people
internet,
may have been on the internet like doing stuff, but I wasn't on it that much at that point.
Social media wasn't really a big.
Right.
I mean, wasn't
so,
really a thing at that point. So
I can't remember exactly what year Knights of the Republic was released, but anyways.
Oh,
So I wasn't on the internet, and it was just so
2003
shocking, so surprising, and just I love it.
Yeah, so. Good stuff, really good stuff. So let's move on because we're about halfway on our time. We have a lot more questions, and we have our main topic as well. But our second question. But anyway, Grace, good question. Thank you for that. Thank you. We're getting all emotional up in our podcast now. Anyway, our second question comes from Josh in Birkinshaw. Man, thanks for asking a question. And he says, do you guys have a favorite planet in the Star Wars universe or a location from the film or game? He says, I love Terrace from KOTOR. So, first of all, really cool. Good example.
Terrace too.
Yeah, Terrace is a good example. But for me, I think... let me say this. First of all, 4, 5, and 6 was the original trilogy, right? Like it was, and that's what I started off with, and I always have a special place in my heart for the OG trilogy, right? But I will admit, the prequels though were they were geared towards I don't want to say they were geared towards kids, but at the same time it was more action packed, like more high paced. There was more colors, it was bright and flashy, So as a young kid watching the prequel trilogy as they came out, for me that was very I don't know. It was definitely geared for me, right? Like it was geared when they made it. And so as an impressionable young kid, as they were coming out, I was watching them. It was very interesting to see these. So anyway, say all that. One of my probably my favorite planets was Naboo. I love Naboo. I don't know. Every time we saw the scenes from Naboo, it was just so beautiful.
Right.
And then obviously we got to see that scene where we have like Anakin and Padme, and they were just rolling in the hay, so to speak, literally, not metaphorically. And and they were just playing. And anyway, it's just so beautiful. And I just remember thinking like, oh, that is the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, I always remember in my mind thinking like, I want to go to Naboo so bad. And like everything's like super peaceful there, and they had, like even their animals are not really aggressive. They're not like,
they might buck you off.
You might ride them and they throw you off, but they're not like gonna eat you or anything. So anyway, Naboo for me was a big one that I loved, obviously. And this is another really random one. I don't know why I liked this planet when I was watching this, but in episode 3 when we saw Utapau, I don't know why, I just loved Utapau. I don't know. Utapau, whatever you want to call it. Tomato, right? Anyway, but in Utapau, whatever. I thought that was really cool. I liked it. I think the people were just really neat too. They're kind of creepy, but they're just kind of cool. But those are from the movies, but from like the kind of Legends games or whatever. For me, you mentioned Terrace. Also on KOTOR, I love Dantooine.
Oh man.
What?
That was one of mine.
No. Nice.
Of course. Yeah.
Anyway, Dantooine was a big one for me. I really enjoyed Dantooine. But I've talked enough. Go ahead. Tell me why you like Dantooine.
Well, I liked Dantooine because that was where you go in KOTOR to become a Jedi.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
so like and again, for me, role playing as a Jedi was like my thing. I loved playing acting like a Jedi as a kid. So the fact that Knights of the Republic put you in the shoes like that and like allowed you to become a Jedi and go through the training and stuff. So you go to Dantooine to go and learn from the Jedi Council there and all this stuff. And so it immediately became a place that like attached to me.
Oh yeah.
I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, in Corto, you're always like on the run. It felt like you was hiding, and on Dantooine it was the first time you felt like you were like safe. You're not safe necessarily, but you were there with
well,
people.
back
of
then,
like-minded,
back then it was this beautiful landscape, these fields
Yes,
and
yeah.
stuff. Like I realize now, if I went back and played it,
like,
oh
wow,
my,
looks like a block.
but at the time it looked really cool.
Yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, it was so neat going through the experience of becoming a Jedi there.
Absolutely.
For the movies, I'll go back real quick. In the movies, I really think that Camino is a really neat
Oh yeah.
place.
Yeah. It's really
I thought
cool.
that was a really cool place. Mustafar, I love Mustafar, another neat place. And I have a special place in my heart for Tatooine, of course, just because it's, you know, where it started,
Yeah, absolutely.
where it ended. So it definitely holds a special place in my heart. But going back to Legends, my other one that stands out to me is Korriban or Moraband, whichever you want to refer to it as, because it's technically both, depending on the time period. But which is actually, I guess, it's canon now. But I don't know that it's a lot of what I love about it may not be necessarily canon anymore. But it used to be a very in Knights of the Republic, it was a place full of Sith Lord like tombs and stuff, and so and you go there and you have to pretend to be a Sith, and like you're kind of like
I forgot about that.
yeah,
level,
you gotta go and like and there's this like potential of you actually becoming Sith, because if you go through with some of the things they want you to do, of course, you know that you start to turn to the dark side. So it's this balance of trying to stay on the light but not reveal yourself as a Jedi.
I forgot about that.
And so that was, again, just another really cool storyline, and just going there and being in these Sith tombs and finding these old Sith lords and Sith, like their lost relics and things, and just another really cool place that I grew to find to be awesome. So
there's a lot of good planets.
There's so many.
I mean, all of them to me hold some kind of special place, because we see, you know, a scene here or a level there, and so it's really cool. I mean, there's great virtues to every planet for
Absolutely,
sure.
yeah.
Anyways, let's go on to our third question that comes from Brandon Dukes. We appreciate you asking a question, brother. But he says, appreciate you guys getting to my question the other day with an awesome response. You're very welcome. Thank you for asking. Is there any other relationship and shared force between two sensitive individuals known in canon or the expanded universe, referring to Rey and Ben? So, first of all, that's a really good question. We appreciate that. So, there is a long and a short to this question, right? So, let's go to the short first, the short part first, and then we'll get to the long part. So short part first is no. There is no, you know, if we're considering just the dyad of the Force, there is no other recorded, at least in canon right now.
Right.
There's no other dyad in the Force like
Nothing
Rey
like
Ben.
nothing like them.
Now, going to Legends, there still really isn't. In Legends, there is. There's some hints and there's some things here and there that this happened or whatever. But in terms of like a strictly like a dyad of the Force that you can like transverse time and space, and like, you know, how Rey and Ben, they like hand each other lightsabers like that. Don't know that we've ever seen that even in Legends. Like I said, it's been hinted at, but not really.
Yeah, back
strictly.
in Legends, they would refer to something called a Force bond, and like Revan and Bastila had a Force bond, and there are a lot of different characters. I think Jason and Jaina had a Force bond, things like that, where they could sense each other and almost like, you know, talk to each other and different things.
Right.
But nothing. I still don't know that it's ever been like what we've seen.
Right.
With Kylo Ren and
well, let
Rey.
me say this, you know, and that gets to the broader, the long version of the question. So, you know, I'm saying strictly dyad, like that was spoken of in episode 9. That is pretty much just Rey and Ben, but a Force bond though, we see that a lot. Like Andrew just said, you know, we see like Revan and Bastila. We even see, like, in a sense, we see like you know, moving into just the original trilogy, we see Luke and Leia. You know, they're twins brought forth by a very strong Force user. They both have the Force, and they share a strong Force bond. Now, not necessarily a dyad, so to speak, but a very strong Force bond. Also, we see the this may not be their official title, so forgive me if it isn't, but like the Eternal Twins in the Old Republic game. So not canon, but we see like the two twins, and they're very strong on the Force, so they have kind of a bond as well. And especially after the one dies, the other like pretty much goes crazy. So you can see that like there's like this disconnection when he died. And so I'm trying to think if there's and then Andrew mentioned it before the episode and kind of brought it to my attention again. But like Ezra and Maul, like in Rebels, they have a bond, so to speak,
when they deal with that holocron,
right?
And then after it like blows up or whatever, they end up. Like even once Maul's gone, Ezra kind of continues to have like some hallucinations and things, and there's this until Maul is killed, and then it goes away.
Right.
And so there's clearly something there that linked them together after that. And the dyad, I mean, we still don't necessarily understand exactly what happened there, but as far as we know, it was created by Palpatine, right? So,
well, here's the thing. I don't know that it was. I don't know that we'd actually know that, though, do we? Because
that's just what he said.
Well, that's what he said.
And that, that's what Snoke said. But
yeah. So I will say this: like the dyad was a big thing within the Sith cultists, that we got to see all the cultists in Episode 9. But that was one of their prophecies, that there would soon come those who are connected in the Force via the dyad and da-da-da-da. In fact, in Episode 9, we get to see a quote, or we get to hear a quote, should I say, from Darth Sidious, and he says, "The life force of your bond, a dyad in the Force, a power like life itself." And then so here's this. So this is technically canon, right? Because he said it in the movie, "An unseen for generations." So we don't know who it was, but according to what Palpatine said in the movie, which makes it canon, there has been a dyad before, generations before, but we don't really know who that was, right? They never really mentioned that. And in Legends, we do know, so this is Legends, this is not canon, but we do know that Plagueis, which is Sidious's master, Plagueis tried to create a dyad in the Force with him and Sidious, which failed. And then Sidious tried to create one with him and Vader, which failed. So who he was referring to in generations past or whatever, we don't know. But that is canon, though. I guess now that there was someone else who had a dyad, two people who had a dyad, but we just don't know who it was. But we're getting pretty deep here. But to answer your question, the best of our ability, as of right now, in canon, there was a dyad, but nothing quite like Rey's and Ben's. But outside of a dyad, there has been many people have Force bond. So
right, yeah.
Anyway, let's go on to our final and fourth question for the week, and that comes from Kristen Perry. Thanks for asking, Kristen. And she says, "You have already talked about potential series, movies, and books about certain characters. And what character would you personally like to see in a series or movie or book? And also, what type of previously said media would you like to see that character to be shown in?" So, we kind of have talked about this before. Honestly, I don't really remember what I said. But for me, I mean, a lot of characters that I really care about, I care about them because they're already in movies, books, comics, right?
Yeah.
And I think this might have been what I said last time, but this keeps popping in my head, and I just want to see it so bad. I want to see a little mini series of Malakili. Which, for those of you who don't know, in Return of the Jedi, he's the Rancor Wrangler, so to speak, or Rancor Keeper
which we do get we do get a little short story about him.
Apparently, yeah. I have not read that, I guess. I need to read that.
We get a short story about him in the Aftermath series.
I just want to know...
Oh, wait. Was it the Aftermath series? Now I'm questioning myself. I believe it's the Aftermath series.
Yeah, anyway. Wherever it's at, I'll try to find it because I do want to read it. Because I don't know, it's just so... I just remember watching Return of the Jedi and just thinking it's just so absurd. Just this big fat guy with a leather draping hat. He's like weeping because this monster just died.
I'm pretty sure it's the Aftermath series because it deals with him dealing with his loss of his Rancor.
See, but that's the thing. I don't really care what happens after that. I mean, I do, but I want to see him grow up and like
begin to train.
Where
this
did he
Rancor.
training to handle Rancors? Like that's what I want to know. How did he get on with Jabba? Like how I mean, because listen, you know that dude that trained that Rancor from birth. That's why he was crying because that.
Oh yeah,
he loved that
they
Rancor.
Yeah.
I want to see it so bad. So in terms of media, I don't want it to be a big thing. I want it to be just like a small mini series, like maybe just a couple episodes of like a live action, or maybe even animated. I don't even care. Just something small. So also on that same thread, Salacious B. Crumb. I think it'd be so fun. So fun.
I think you just want a Jabba's Palace
Jabba's
series.
Palace series. Yes, that's a great idea. Yes. Oh, I didn't even think about it. That's exactly it.
It's
That's
just called
what I
Jabba's
want.
Palace, and it
Yes.
just deals with different
Dude,
characters.
it could be like a
from
sitcom.
Yeah.
Yes.
It could be like the Office type
my gosh.
comedy,
It's like it's like
dealing with the everyday affairs of
and it's
Jabba's
like,
Palace.
it's like I can just imagine like it's Malakili and Jabba in the room. Jabba's like, "Oh, dude, go knock on it," and then it flash frames to like Malakili in front. I just don't know what he wants anymore. I would love it. I didn't even like think about this until you just said that.
I'd watch it every week.
Oh, I would tune in. If anyone from Star Wars or Disney's listening, please, I will give so much money to watch this. Please. Anyway, so Andrew, you got me all flustered. Anyway,
I'm sorry.
to answer Kristen's question, who would you like to see as a character in any of those previously said mediums?
My answers are way more generic. I want Darth Revan.
Oh well, yeah, naturally.
Give me Darth Revan. Give me Darth Bane. Those are the two I want. I don't care in what form you give it to me. You can give it to me in any form.
Yeah.
But give me more stories of those two in canon. That's my answer. It's very simple.
All
I've
right.
said it before, but and if I want to I'll throw in one more thing. Give me more stories. Give me more novels with Obi-Wan Kenobi in it.
All right.
We don't have a whole lot of novels that deal with him.
Give us Bane, Revan, Kenobi, and Jabba's Palace, or we're a riot. So
Jabba's Palace sitcom. We need it.
I want it so bad. I never even thought about it until you said that. That sounds so amazing. Okay, anyway. Well, everybody, we're going to move on because we're getting kind of close on our time. But with that being said, we just want to thank everybody again so very much for asking questions. It's honestly a true pleasure to have everybody ask these questions. It's so fun.
And it's such a great feeling that we are 12 weeks into this, and we're still getting questions every week, and that just means a lot to us.
And that means a lot to us, but it also shows that you guys are real fans. Like you just want to hear more about Star Wars, and that's what's cool. It's not just people listening that. I don't even know who else would be listening, but just to know that the people who are listening are people who want to hear about Star Wars, and
you guys care about Star Wars.
Yeah.
We care about Star Wars.
Hey, we're a great match.
Yeah, we're just all one big family talking about Star Wars. So.
Anyway, yes, I agree. And again, we can't thank you enough for continuing asking questions, and we got 4 more for next week.
Yeah, and and I've never we haven't discussed this at all, but I'm going to just bring it up right now. One day, at some point, we've talked about maybe doing like a live show at some point, like doing like a live stream type thing. You guys can have input with us directly live. We'll probably do that in the near future.
Yeah.
I would love to get, and we'll have to talk to him about it, but I would love to get Josh and Birkinshaw on with us.
Yeah.
I want to talk to him. I want to get like a live, like him call in or something. Like I want to talk to Josh and Birkinshaw.
We could probably do that.
And I want to talk to our other buddy, Noah.
Yeah.
I want to get Noah on the show as well. Talk to those two guys who have been there for us.
Yeah. You guys have
they've
been there
just
since
been
the
right
beginning,
there,
man.
like just cheering us on. I want to get them on our first live show. So if you guys are listening, email us about that or DM us, whatever, if you're interested in doing that with us. It'd be fun.
Yeah. But there's a lot more things in the future. If you guys continually want to get new stuff from us, we are more than willing to do it. We're satisfied with just doing the podcast, but if you guys want to start seeing some live streams where you guys can join us, or we can do some live stuff where people ask questions, we can answer them just live.
Yeah, and you know what? This is actually, maybe we should do this. Again, I'm like throwing out my ideas on our, which maybe that's a bad business move. move, but maybe we should just throw up a poll when we're done today. Throw up a poll of a couple of different ideas we've discussed and see what people want to see the most out of. Like maybe if we venture out a little farther past our podcast to do something else, we could see what people would be most interested in.
And we're still pretty, obviously we're only 12 episodes in, so we're just throwing some stuff out there. But I mean, eventually, if you guys would like to see this, we would love to open it up, like I said, for the live streams. We like maybe do some like YouTube videos, or maybe, like I said, if it gets even further into it and you guys just want to see us, like maybe do some like some Star Wars like gaming stuff. I don't know. Who knows? But anyway, up to you guys. Maybe you guys are like, we could
do a nice little Republic playthrough for you guys.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be really fun. You guys are probably thinking, no, we do not want to have anything else from you, and that's perfectly fine. We're gonna cry ourselves to sleep, but just let us know.
1 hour long podcast is already too much.
I can't handle it. I'm just here for the Star Wars. I don't want anything to do with you.
If it was 45 minutes, it'd be a lot better.
That's a terror coming out of y'all.
I can't comment on that.
Oh, she ain't listening this far. We just make
I'm not commenting on that. Not this time.
Oh, not this time. Okay, well, let's move on. We're getting wild up here.
Let me say, my wife is one of my biggest supporters. She does love the show. She does. She shares it, and
she does.
And
she really does.
We just like to tease her about it.
Just like to tease her because that one
time,
horrible comment.
That one time, that one time she made a comment, and we just will never let it go.
We appreciate you, Tara. Thank you for supporting us.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So let's move on to our main topic for this week, and that is talking about a review. So spoiler alerts for Clone Wars Season 7. Episode 8, Together Again. We're going to be talking about that today. So if you have not watched it yet, or you don't want to hear any spoilers, please just, you can close off now. We hope you come back again and listen to it when you get done. Finish. But anyway, so we're going to get into that. To be honest, I think a lot of times, or like a lot of times before, there's just not a lot to talk about on this episode. We actually did a poll last week asking if you guys liked it, and a lot of you guys said you really liked it. So I want to say right off the bat, we're not trying to crap on the show if you guys like it. You know what I'm saying? That's not our point. We're just saying from our perspective, there's just not a lot of stuff that we love about it so far.
Yeah,
I don't know what to say about it.
Well, so like we got a lot of comments and people were saying they loved it, and I'm like, that's great.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
awesome.
glad you love it.
I was pleased to see how many of you guys are enjoying it and we're just saying, yeah, I love it. And that's great. I just, again, and I think maybe just because of the platform we're on, what we're doing, like maybe we're being a little more critical.
That's what I was thinking too.
And than we would have been had we just been a viewer and not had any place to really like talk about it or want to tell people about it. Mm-hmm. But looking at it a little more critically, I think I'm just disappointed on what they've done so far. And this episode continued that for me, because without even like just looking at the big picture of this episode, we started where we started at the beginning of the previous episode, and they kind of deal with like escaping them again. Mm-hmm. And then we get moving all the way to the end of the episode, we get one appearance of Maul for a little bit in the middle, just like a tiny little thing. And then at the end, the Bo-Katan comes and tells Ahsoka they need her help to defeat Maul. And like, that's the lead up.
Yeah.
Why did we have a 4-episode arc where we didn't really get the lead into the final arc until the last episode, and it's just a tiny little portion that why couldn't it have been a bigger lead in, I guess is my thing. Why couldn't this story played more of an important role into the next arc?
Exactly.
And you could say, well, it deals with the syndicate and blah blah blah. Well, but that's just, it doesn't really,
but what does that do though?
It doesn't really matter that much, you know. And it's like the two, Trace and Rafa, honestly, and maybe some people will be offended by this, but I think they're throwaway characters.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I don't feel anything for them at all.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I feel like they had a lot of cheesy lines and things, and I just didn't really like them that much. And so I thought this arc was going to deal with Ahsoka really like struggling with her decision, struggling with where she needs to go, what she needs to be. And like this arc lightly hints at that stuff, but never truly gets into the like thick of it.
Yeah.
And really like dives into her where she's at and what and where she's headed. It never really deals with it that much. And I think that's what this needed to be. And but instead what we got was Ahsoka's going, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do that." And then Trace is like, "Oh, I think you or what was it, Rafa maybe?" One of them's like, "Oh, but that's like what you're meant to be or meant to do."
Okay.
What does she say?
Let's back up here and just say this. It was Rafa, but the entire time Rafa is like against Ahsoka the entire time. Like she hates Ahsoka. Like she don't trust Ahsoka. Now I do get that she kind of like sacrificed herself in a sense, and Rafa respected that. But all of a sudden, even post that, you know, she was still being kind of cynical or whatever. And just out of nowhere, Rafa's just like, "You need to go do it because that's what you're meant to do."
Yeah, and then Ahsoka's like, "Okay." I'm like,
"Hey, what?" So
you're doing it because this random woman that you met like a couple days ago tells you that's what you're supposed to do. So you're just like, okay. I wish there had been more conflict or like a more internal struggle with like her and the Jedi and what she needs to do. And I wish it had been a more important character that had convinced her she needed to go and do it.
Yeah,
or events that convinced her that she couldn't run from that. You know, like that's something that she's a natural hero, you know. She has inside of her a natural, unescapable want to help people.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted it to be because of that she decides, you know what, I have to do this, even though I ran from the Jedi and I might have to deal with the Jedi again. I can't escape this. I have to go and help.
Yeah.
But instead it was like, oh, I don't know. And then Rafa's like, you should go do this. And then she's like, okay, I'll do it because Rafa told me that.
It just felt, because here's the thing, like it felt like for me it undermined everything that happened in, was it season 5 is when she left, right? The end of season 5, or is it?
Yeah, end of season 5.
So it felt like it just undermined everything, because like for Ahsoka, there was such a hard decision leaving the Order. It was such a horribly difficult thing that she's leaving everything that she's known and loved and aspired to be because she truly felt betrayed, and she's leaving because she feels like the Jedi Order is not what it used to be or what it's supposed to be. And like that was like such a deep moment. And I remember her walking away from Anakin down those steps. Like the first time I was like, I like almost cried. Like I tears like welling my, like this was an emotional moment. Yeah. That was good writing. But then on this one now, she's not, I mean, Rafa didn't convince her to rejoin the Jedi Orders. That's not what I'm trying to get at. But at the same time, she's afraid to go with Bo-Katan and go to the Mandalore, you know, to Mandalore, because she's afraid it might lead her back to the Jedi. So in a sense, it's kind of like as if she's making that choice. Okay, I might lead back to being a Jedi a little bit. And I agree. I feel like a person of great significance to her should have convinced her of that, not just some random character that hated her the entire 4-episode arc.
Well, like, I mean, how much more emotional and impactful would it have been had she been like, they ask her to do it and she's struggling with it and she contacts Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And like someone that she's close to, but you know, she doesn't feel like she can talk to Anakin because she, you know, gave her a lightsaber and walked away from him and all that.
Yeah.
Someone like Obi-Wan that I feel like she probably could still talk to and be like, you know, this is what they're asking of me. Should I do it? You know, kind of like looking for that guidance, and then, you know, and having that.
I would even go even further. Like, okay, for instance, like, you know, her and Barriss, whatever. Offrey, whatever, Barriss, whatever, before she got, you know, crazied up, you know, she was very good friends with her, and so therefore her, Barriss, Anakin, and Luminara all kind of bonded a little bit in that, especially in that one episode. Right. But what would have been interesting is like kind of as an impartial party, like contacted like Luminara or something like that, and like they said, hey, you know, I'm really dealing with this, struggling with this, you know, what are your thoughts on this? And of course, Luminara's gonna like tell her to come back to the Order or whatever, but like. Because Luminar is very like orderly. She's not emotional. Blah blah blah. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, remember when Trace and Rafa were talking about this Jedi? I'm pretty sure that was Luminara.
I think it was Barris.
Oh really? Was it? Is it like Jedi with big flowing robes and stuff like that, or like?
I think it was because they were talking about they like. I'd have to go back and look, but it was like a negative thing though, right?
Well,
I don't think Luminara would have been.
She was being very unemotional and just said the Force will be with you. Like her parents died, and they're like, "Oh, the Force will be with you," and just walked off. That's why I thought it was Luminara, because she said something about being green. Yeah. And then like she's very unemotional. I'm like, oh wait, that might be Luminara.
I took it as Barris, but maybe
okay.
Maybe
well, it doesn't matter. Well, I have no idea. I'm just rumor mongering.
Right. Well, there's no real way to know for sure. Well, unless you go back and watch the episode, I'm not sure who's there for that, but
it was just Trace, Rafa, and Ahsoka.
No, I'm talking about the episode from the first season that's referring to.
I see what you're saying. Anyway, but my whole point is just that Luminar is very kind of like no emotion, just like So from coming from that perspective, and they have that connection between her and Barris and blah blah blah, I think it would have been very interesting. Like someone who she respected, a Jedi Master. Yeah. It would have been very interesting. So. To wrap this up,
well, and I'm sure some people might be like, you could say this is a kids show. Why are you, Well, listen, yeah, it is a kids show, but this is what we do. All right,
this is our job. All right,
this is what we do. We overthink it. We talk about what we'd like to see, what could have happened, what did happen, and they've clearly chosen to be very, very simple. I mean, that's honestly. How I would put this season so far. Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah, it's not that complex. It is not the Mortis arc. Right. It's exactly. Not. It's not the World Between Worlds and Rebels.
Yeah, they're not deep diving into Star Wars lore and
blah, blah, blah. So far we've gotten very simplistic storylines, which is fine. They've clearly decided that this is still a show for kids, even though they know that most of the viewers are adults. It's the route they've chosen to take. Yeah. So I think we need to set our expectations for this next arc, because I have so many expectations for the final arc that I think I'm going to be disappointed if I don't set those back a little bit, because clearly from what we've gotten so far, I don't think it can drastically all of a sudden change in this final arc. And if it does, I still think it's kind of going to be a negative for the whole season because it was so uneven. And so...
Well, and I think the problem is and I think we said it last week, but I think the there's one key word here that can sum it up, our disappointment. It's not that we're trying to be over cynical, but the word is expectation, right? And I think, in fact, actually, we did that little kind of post on Facebook last week, asking if people liked it, and I'm trying to remember, somebody said something about, I think, maybe it was Brandon Dukes, I think is what he said as well. He's saying like how he had big expectations. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think it was him. Anyway, my point is that I think we're on the same line on that. Is that we expected it. I mean, because you go back and rewatch season 5 and season 6, and then you tell me that this is a kid's show. You know what I'm saying? Like they made conscious decisions to like have these crazy, deep, emotional stories, adding crazy things to Star Wars lore, and it's almost like they went episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. It's almost like season 7 is like coming off of season 1, 2, and 3. And like season 7 was supposed to be there, like in terms of action, lore, writing, things like that. Because season 5 and 6 built up, and the writing and everything, the emotion was just so strong, and it was crazy. And then now that's why I think I was waiting for this insane crescendo of lore and emotion and writing all coming together for this culmination leading up into episode 3 of the actual saga. Yeah. And that's not what we're getting. And you know what? At the end of the day, that was their decision, and we can't change that.
Yeah. Now, I still think that this final arc is that.
Well, and that might be
what you just said, what you expected this season to be. I think that this final arc is meant to be that. I still do believe that is there. But why the final arc why not the whole season? You know, why
Right.
just the final arc? Why
Right.
did we get what we got?
It almost just feels like they're just trying to get it over with.
But anyways,
So
guys,
anyway.
you've heard us rant about this last week and weeks before that, and I don't want to spin our tires too much, but
Yeah. And I think I just want to say at the end of the day, we're not haters, right? Like the reason we're
No,
being so
we're-
cynical is because we love Star Wars.
yeah, I'm not hating it at all. I mean, I'm still watching it.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
gonna continue to
Every
watch
week
it.
I come with bated breath.
Will I go back and watch these episodes? Probably not. But
Probably not.
we'll just see where this arc goes. Well,
Yeah.
next week I'm very curious what we're going
Yeah.
to be talking about.
So
on
as
this first episode.
Yeah,
of the arc.
I'm excited to see what goes on. But as passionate Star Wars fans, we're excited to see what comes in the future. Like I said, I just want to reiterate that the reason we're being so cynical is because we're so passionate about what we're watching.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not that because we're like, we're just trying to point out the flaws. I want to state that. So anyway, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna conclude today. We're excited what we're gonna see in the future, but we just want to thank everybody so much for listening today.
Yeah, we're a little long today.
A little long, but you know what? What else do you have to do? So we're all stuck at home anyways, right? But we want to thank you so much for your continued support to this podcast, and we absolutely love hearing from you guys, and we look forward to continually hearing from you. Please like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter for weekly news, polls, discussions, and more. Also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review for us. We love to hear from you, good, bad, or indifferent. In fact, also, and this is something we've neglected to mention in a couple weeks, in a row now. But please also, if you want to, go follow us on YouTube. We actually do have some of our episodes on YouTube, and we don't have all of them because there's a weird mix-up, and we're trying to figure out how to get that on there. But we have, I think, for episodes 6 or 7 all the way up till now, we have them on there. So if you have any friends, because I had some people talking like, I don't really listen to Spotify, I don't listen to Apple Podcasts, but I do listen to YouTube if you can get them on there. So
yes, you can listen to on YouTube. There's no video as of right now. In the future, we might start doing the podcast with video feed, so you guys can watch us if you want. I don't know why in the world you'd want to.
We are devilishly good looking, but we are sitting there like in a hobbled corner in his house. It's like,
well, we'd have to make it look a little better if we were going to do that, probably.
Probably wait till we get this special room that
Yes.
we're trying to get together as like our actual podcasting room.
Right, yeah. Eventually we'll have that. So then maybe in the future we'll have video.
Right.
But
So anyway, again, guys, appreciate you listening. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Leave us comments, reviews. We'd love to hear from you. But last but not least, may the Force be with you, and we thank you for joining the Jedi Eternal.